Remember not to write all your math papers in ink. Remember to show all your work if you don't want to see. Remember the test day and prepare for it wholly.
Alright, let's go over 1.50, factoring the difference of squares. Basically this means b equals 0. I'll show you guys the formula, but I don't like memorizing this formula. A squared minus b squared equals a plus b, a minus b. And the reason why I don't, because it's just like another formula to memorize, and it's kind of easier if you just use the Xbox method. So let's go ahead and try this example. It has 81 minus x squared. I will show you guys the two methods, and you can choose which one works for you. It's just hard to distinguish when to use each of these methods. Okay, 81 equals x squared. Okay, my method is to keep using the X box. And it seems long, but you'll recognize that it's more universal. It's kind of like having Air Force Ones. They are classic. Okay, x squared minus 81, and you're going to notice that I left a big space in there because that's the point of difference of squares. The b value is 0. And then here you can just use your Xbox method. Your a value is 1, so a times c is negative 81. My b value is 0, right? A, b, and c. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 81 are positive 9 and negative 9, and they add to be 0. Basically, that 9x and negative 9x, if you add those together, equals 0x. That term always goes in the top left and then the bottom right. And then if you finish this up, take out the greatest common factor of the first top row here, that would be x. This one would be a positive 9. Greatest common factor of this column would be x, and this one would be negative 9. And so you would have x plus 9 and x minus 9. And we're doing the same thing here. Solve each of the equations by factoring and check your solution. Set it equal to 0 and solve. And then to check our answers, I can just put it back into the original equation. 81 equals negative 9 squared. And that is true. And this particular problem is also verifying why, when you do it by the square root method, whoops, we're supposed to put 9 in there. And that is true, right? That'd be 81. Remember the square root method. I'll show you over here in green. You take the square root, and you can't say x is equal to 9 because we just boxed two answers there, and here you only have one. That is the reason why you have a plus or minus. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you guys now the formula and see how, in some ways it might be like a shortcut, but it's hard sometimes to distinguish. Okay, so I have 81 equals x squared. I'm going to subtract 81 from both sides. And we're left with 0 equals x squared minus 81. Okay, the formula has something squared, so I'm going to put an x into the parentheses, and this one is a 9. Okay, and then in some ways you're going to do this. The square root of x squared is x. And then the square root of 9 is, square root of 81 is 9, so you have a 9 here, and one's plus, one's minus, and then you would just solve it, so you get x equals 9, negative 9. The point is that you have to recognize that it is a particular formula the number one mistake is like it has to be a subtraction of squares. That's why they call it difference or subtraction of squares. Okay, so pick one of those methods and see which one works for you. Again, you're gonna see what becomes hard is they scramble them all up. Go ahead, for questions 15 and 17, go ahead and skip 2 of those. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys 15 by just using my method. Remember, b is 0 here. So a is 1, b is 64, so negative 64. My b value is 0, that's why I said that the b here is 0. And two numbers that multiply are 8 and 8, and that'll be, if you'll recognize that these will always be the same number, but one's positive, one's negative. So they multiply to be negative 64 and add to be 0. That is the middle term, 0x. So I'm going to put an x here. Bottom left, top right. That one always goes into top left and the bottom right. And then if you just take your guys' common factor, you'll get x, negative 8, x, and positive 8. And then solve, you just set each of those equal to 0. So you get x equals 8 and x equals negative 8. Alright, let's try number 16. It's nice because it's set equal to 0. And then I'm just going to have to use my x on my box. A times c is, remember this is x squared plus 0x minus 100. A is 1, b is 0, c is negative 100. So 1 times negative 100 is negative 100. My b value is 0. My numbers are going to be numbers the identical ones, so 10 and negative 10. We're going to put those here and here always. That was this term, 1x squared or just x squared, and then negative 100. GCF here is going to be, whoa, I was trying to do a fancy x. X, positive 10, x, and negative 10. So that becomes 10 and negative 10. Set both of those equal to 0. And then you just solve. So subtract 10, you get negative 10 here, and over here you get positive 10. Those are our two solutions, and then we forgot to check our answers. That would become 100 minus 100 equals 0. And same thing over here. So that is true. On the previous problem, that is true, right? Negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 8. Same thing if we did a positive 8 squared. And number 17. I'm going to set this equal to 0. I left a big space in there so that, remember this is the point of the lesson. For this particular section, b is equal to 0. This little placeholder is super important to us, especially as you division of polynomials later on. So you have A is 1, B is 0, C is negative 289. So A times C, so that would be 1 times negative 289. You have a B value that is 0, 289 times 1. I don't even know the other ones, but I already know it's going to be 17 squared. And then those are my numbers. Again, in this difference of squares problem, they will always be identical, one positive, one negative. That's splitting this term here. Oops, that looks like a positive, doesn't it? Oh, that's what it was. It was a 1. X squared and negative 289. Greatest common factor down here is x, positive 17, x, and negative 17. So that'll give us x plus 17 and x minus 17. Set those each equal to 0 and solve. And then you can check your answer. That's what it means to solve. Find something that's true. As you have seen that I'm checking my answer, I both actually found that I've messed up, so you might do the same thing. Alright, questions 18, 19 to 20. Go ahead and complete 2 of those. So skip 1 problem, solve each equation by factoring, check your solution. Remember, that is not 14 is not a B value. If you subtract 50, you'll get x squared plus 0x minus 36. And then hopefully you're getting really good at this x in this box. You don't have to label it. Eventually I see students do this. A times C is negative 36. B value is 0. My 2 numbers are 6 and negative 6. And some of you guys see the shortcut. There is an x. I was about to tell you, but I said no, won't do that. I want to cheat you out of learning. Negative 36. And then you're going to factor out the greatest common factor of this row, this column, and this column. And then go ahead and split those, set them equal to 0 for the 0 product rule. And you get your 2 solutions. Remember what we're doing. We are essentially graphing negative 6, positive 6, and the C value of negative 36. In this case, this is called the power function because there's no B value. Basically what that means is the y-intercept is, in this case, the vertex. That only happens for the quote-unquote difference of squares problem, or we'll learn later on that it is a transformation. Alright, let's go ahead and check our answer. Negative 6 squared plus 14, does that equal 50? 36 plus 14 does equal 50. We'll check the positive 6. And same thing, 36 plus 14 equals 50. Go ahead and try number 19. And I'll show you guys the other method. But you have to know your perfect squares. Why do they call it a perfect square? If this is 13 times this 13, I want to draw it, but this is 169 little boxes. That's why I call it a perfect square, because it's really 13 squared equals 169. Is that pretty neat? Okay, so if you put this into the formula, again, this is just the other way of solving it. The formula is a plus b, a minus b. So if a is equal to x, and b is equal to 13, you get 1 plus, you get 1 minus. Let's set it equal to 0 and solve. Low diagonal. Okay, and then we gotta check our answer. So 13 squared minus 169, does that equal 0? 169 minus 169 does equal 0. Yay, yay. Negative 13 squared minus 169 equals 0. We're not sure. 169 minus 169 minus 169 is equal to 0. Ooh, look at this one. How do I do it? How do I do it? Alright, let's, I'm going to subtract 124. My pencil turned off. You're going to get 0 equals x squared minus 121. Remember, we're trying to get it where you have a the b value is, we said, way up here equal to 0. That's why it's called difference of squares. And now you can use your x box. Okay, so a is 1, c is negative 121. So 1 times negative 121 is negative 121. B value is 0. My two numbers are going to be 11 and negative 11. So this splits this one, so that'll be 11x, negative 11x. Those two on the side, these two always go in these two positions. Just make that clear because it's splitting this term. Okay, so this one, that whole term, always goes here. Where's it? Great. So that means this would be x squared, always. And then the c value will always go in the bottom right, always. So hopefully this color coding or pattern helps you. All right, the greatest common factor of the row is x. This one's a positive 11, x, and negative 11. And then there you just solve it. Those are our two solutions. Let's put it in there. Check it. So 121 plus 3 equals 124. And then 124 equals negative 11 squared plus 3. So again, that's negative 11 times the negative 11, which is positive 121 plus 3, which equals 124.
Do you love math? If you do love math, I suggest to go to www.mrmathinc.net or YouTube Mr. Ing today. Very easy and compatible to work with.